Track and field fans around the globe, however you're listening, live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on demand for the best track and field fans in the world, the members of the Let'sRun.com supporters club. This is the Friday 15 on Thursday. What an amazing race. What an amazing meet. Oslo Diamond League instant reaction show is here. I was yelling at the television and that final race. What the Dream Mile delivered, folks. Absolutely amazing. There was a long delay. It seemed like I'm getting nervous because I've got to do the live show like 5 minutes after it ends. I'm like, when are they going to start this thing? The gun goes off. The pacing is good. They're going for the time. And hats off to Ollie Hoare and that British guy, Jake Whiteman, because they tried to run with Ingebrigtsen. Hoare said he was going to do it, and he did it. And they're going, and I'm like, with maybe 600 to go, I'm like, is it possible Jakob Ingebrigtsen loses this race? What am I going to be thinking? Then I'm like, no, he's going to crush him in the last lap. And then the last 200, he starts to pull away a little bit from Hoare. And I'm like, go. I'm like yelling at the screen, and I see the damn green light. He finishes with the green light. I'm celebrating the European record, and then they tell me, no European record. Am I the only one that thought he broke it?
Is it bad for me to say that I wasn't even paying attention to the lights in the final home straight? I was just kind of excited by the race. He was starting to pull away. I know the race was essentially over the final 100, but when there are three guys together or two guys together with the last 200, I'm interested in who wins. So I actually wasn't watching the lights, even though this was a record attempt.
I think I'm even worse. I was just watching Alan Webb's time. I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but I'm like, what time are they getting? I saw the world leader, which I knew they're going to get. I saw the world record, and they're kind of in the middle. And I'm like, well, he better beat Webb's time. I'm so sick of Alan Webb's. Alan, I love you, man. Time being the top time of the mile. It's been how many years, John?
15 years. Wait, I'm surprised, Weldon. At this point, you don't know the decimals on Alan Webb's time? I have it burned into my brain because it's been mentioned on Let's Run so much.
61?
91.
Oh, see? That, clearly don't know. But we need to do some 1,500 conversions. I still can't believe that he didn't run faster than this, but it was refreshing, right? It's Steve Cram's record. He's on the broadcast. In some ways, super shoes, pacing lights, all of this shit, 1,500 conversions, whatever. I'm glad to see the record live another day. We act like Ingebrigtsen's a machine. He can't even beat a time that these guys ran, what, 30, I don't even know how many years ago, over 35 years ago. That's crazy, right? Like, I don't know. In some ways, that's what unites the sport, the generations, that some of these marks from a long time ago can somehow stand the test of time. So I'm glad to see that, because I don't know, we act like Jakob Ingebrigtsen's never going to lose again. And he's very good, but he's human like the rest of us. And Ollie Hoare, I'm really sorry for anything I said about you. You're damn good, man. You're really good.
Well, I thought, Weldon, at the end, they're talking about, this is a bit of a humbling for Jakob. You know, he didn't get the record. I'm like, humbling? He just ran the fastest mile in the world for 21 years. Like, if that's what it takes to humble the guy, I don't know if that's really going to work. I know it's not what he was shooting for, but 3:46.46, he's the number 6 performer all time, Diamond League record. I mean, still pretty darn fast.
Yeah, very good run, but...
Wait, so first of all, he didn't seem disappointed. Like he waved at the crowd. Did he realize he didn't get the race? Weldon tells me not to be negative. Look, World Athletics, I know some of you listen to the show. You need to put me in charge of marketing, rules changes, etc. Because remember the idea that I had a few years ago about this light pacing? What did I say? Turn the damn things off on the last lap. So there's ambiguity. Because I thought if you're with the green lights, you had the record. Now, maybe I don't understand the rule. You have to beat the lights? No. That's confusing. Turn them off on the last lap, and then we'll just be looking at the screen and yelling. But I've done the conversions. You convert this to the 1,500, and Alan Webb's converts to 3:30, almost flat exactly. This mile, using the 1.0802 conversion that we at Let'sRun.com use, John Kellogg uses, this converts to a 3:29.64. So it's not as crazy fast as you would think for some reason. But every time Alan Webb, this is the first guy to run faster than Alan Webb in 15 years. It makes me have more respect for Webb's record. Webb also did that all by himself. no pacing lights, nothing, just slamming it down.
I mean, I guess Webb did it, but do we somehow think these conversions need to be changed somehow? Because I keep going off these conversions, and I don't see guys running what I would expect, 345s. And these guys, I guess they can't consistently run, but they run 328 these days. I guess it's hard to do, but if you're looking at the screen right now, we got a screenshot of Jakob and Ollie Hoare. What else do you guys notice about the picture?
A lot of fans in that stand, Weldon.
Yes, this was a tremendous athletics meeting, track and field meet. Congrats to the Oslo people. I guess it helps when you have supposed to have your small country and you're going to have 2 Olympic gold medalists competing. I mean, they thought, but Karsten
Not just
Wilhelm-
2 Olympic gold medalists, Weldon, like 2 of the biggest stars in track and field, Jakob Ingebrigtsen and Karsten Wilhelm, who unfortunately pulled out due to injury.
Because, I mean, as a kid, I used to hear about Oslo and the Dream Mile, and you'd see, like, little bitty results in the back of the newspaper or something, and I don't know, I'd hear about American guys, reading about them track and field news who had run the Dream Mile. I thought it was so cool. And then I wonder when I first saw the meet, and it seemed like they're fans, and then recently you haven't seen as many fans. But this is what our sport needs. We need fans in the seats. New York City, we had a great meet on TV with all the American sprint stars last week, and nobody was there. So somehow, this is what we need. But a great athletics meeting all the way around.
It looks like the capacity at Bislett Stadium is about 15,000. I was talking to my buddy Chris Lohr yesterday about attendance. There was that meet in, where was it, Turku, Finland, John, earlier in the week?
Yeah. Pavo-Nurmi games.
They had over 10,000. That stadium, that city is very similar to Eugene. It's almost exactly the same population, just under 200,000. It's about 2 hours from the big city, Helsinki, 2 hours from Portland for Eugene. And they got more than 10,000 fans there. But my take on attendance and all these things is track and field, a major event, should be a one-time event in your city. So once a year, people go out to the track meet. Once a year, they go to Eugene, etc. We don't want to get too much into the attendance, but the mile was amazing. Ollie Hoare, big cojones for going for it, but Jakob Ingebrigtsen gets the job done. It was just a lot of fun to watch, very exciting.
Wait, Robert, we're 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes into this show. You haven't mentioned the biggest story of the day, Luxembourg record for Charles Grethen in 5th place. This was your buddy at the Olympics. I'm shocked that you're just totally ignoring this, 3:53.20 for 5th.
Did notice it. This guy ran in college somewhere in the States. It was terrible. Now he's an Olympian in 3:53 miles. Congratulations. That's an inside joke if you're just not a regular on the podcast. John claims that I'm obsessed with obscure national records, which is not true.
Yeah, I do agree with your attendance point, Robert. We won't belabor it, but yeah, if Eugene only hosted one day of track and field the entire year, I'm pretty sure they would sell out Hayward Field if it's a one-day world-class thing. The problem is they have 4 meets, and one of them is the World Championships, and they're all multi-day things. So
but I just never understood the idea of why Eugene is considered this amazing place because they can get 15,000 people to show up in a small town for a track meet. I mean, we just saw it happen in Finland for a much less prestigious meet than this one. So any other results here in this? Ingebrigtsen wins 3:46.47. Ollie Hoare, Australian record, 3:47.48. Whiteman, 3:50.30. Neil Gorley, 3:52.91. That is your top 4. Oh, by the way, did you guys see? The sensation of 2021 is terrible in 2022 to Mohamed Couture. I mean, I was really afraid, and I used the word afraid. You can insinuate why I was afraid that he was going to win an Olympic gold medal last year. DNF today.
I was going to ask you about that, Robert, because that is the one other thing that stood out to me. Obviously, sensational performances up front. Australian record for Hoare behind Ingebrigtsen. Breaking Stuart McSwain's record set in this race last year. But, yeah, Couture, I mean, he hasn't... Look, he's run 3:35 and 3:34 in his 2 Diamond League races before this. So it's not like he's suddenly a total donkey, but this is a guy who was running 3:28 last year. So, yes, I'm very curious to know what exactly happened.
I don't want to say it. The libel laws are strict in Europe. I will move on to the other events that we need to cover here. Do we want to go? We're primarily known as a distance website. We started with the mile. Should we go back to the 5,000s or the 800? Let's wrap up the middle distance stuff. The other big middle distance event at this meet, by the way, if you want one of these sweet Let'sRun.com blue t-shirts, go to shop.letsrun.com, was the women's 800. Keely Hodgkinson, this field was pretty loaded. I mean, you had Laura Muir, who just recently run 157, Natoya Gold, lots of other people. Keely Hodge, Jim Enrique. Gun goes off, and everyone says Keely wants to run fast. By the way, go back and watch this first 200. She's very smart. She runs, and she takes her time to get down to the 200-meter mark and doesn't cut in. I mean, I was stunned to see Jim Enrique run this like an amateur. She cuts in immediately and goes in. I'm like, you just made yourself run a few extra feet or inches or whatever. But very smart, gets up there. First time in her life that she goes out in under 58 seconds. 57. The leader was 57.2. They're saying officially 57.3. I bet it was more like 57.4. Anyways, hit 600 though, and I see like 127 high. So I'm like, wow, they really slowed down. That was 30.7. Then over the final 200, pretty much unmatched. Another, what was it, 29.6, John? Is that what I said it was?
Yeah.
Google Doc. 157 high for the win. We're not going to recap every event by event in our written recap. We're just doing highlights. And John was typing in there, and John said she's been sensational in all of her Diamond League wins. This was not sensational to me. I mean, she's way better than these other girls, but I already knew this. But when I'm comparing this in my head to Ah Thing Mo, I'm like, no, Ah Thing Mo is still a class above. 157 flat a few weeks ago. This is 157 high. To me, Ah Thing Mo is the heavy favorite to defend her title in Eugene.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Robert. She was sensational in Birmingham and in Eugene. I think you can grant me that. But here, where she ran a season's best by 100th of a second, Hodgkinson, 157.71. But when we hear she's going for a really fast time, where she's trying to go out fast, I was shocked to hear this on the broadcast. This was the first time she's ever gone out in under 58 seconds for an 800 meters. And that includes last year's Olympic final when she ran 155. Pretty crazy statistic. I did know, we all know she can close really well on the last lap. She is good at running negative splits, but you would think she went out, 57 high, 57 high for this race. You're thinking if she's ready to challenge A Thing Mo, she's going to be running 156 or something. She wanted the world leader, which A Thing Mo took from her in Rome last week and ran 157.01, and it just wasn't quite there. She got that gap, but then Muir came back on her a little bit at the end. She closed slower than Mo did in Rome. Mo was 29.3. If you compare third place, Renelle Lamotte of France, she basically ran the same in both races. She was 158.50 in this race, and she was 158.48 in Rome. And clearly, A Thing Mo beat her by 0.7 of a second more than she did in this race. So I agree with your assessment. It's interesting. I wanted them to run at Prefontaine because I like to see the big stars racing each other. And I know that A Thing Mo, she had COVID in the build-up, so she withdrew. Makes sense. But I am a little worried. Like, if those two raced and A Thing Mo just smashed Keely Hodgkinson, I don't think I'd even be that excited for Worlds. I just kind of know what was happening. So at least now I do have a little hope that Keely can still beat her. That she didn't, get destroyed by Mo in a race. But I do agree with you. It's looking like Mo is quite clearly the heavy favorite. I'm going to be interested to see how Mo deals with Raven Rogers and Najee Wilson at USA's, though. I think she'll be better than them. But getting the proof like we got at the trials last year, if she can beat them convincingly again, that would be another feather in her cap.
Because Ajay Milson won World Indoors, and Raven Rogers has been pretty incredible. I mean, the USA 800 is going to be sick. We'll have one of them slips up, they could miss the team. I mean, the U.S. is so loaded in this event. I thought Keely's post-race comments were interesting here. I was fairly happy, but I wanted faster. A win is a win. Blah, blah, blah. It's great to have Laura Moore here. But she's admitted she wanted the world. I think Mo took my world elites. I want it back, and I'm looking forward to facing her at the World Championships. But one other thing she said was, I love championship racing and running the rounds. So I think in her head, she knows one-off event, I don't have much of a chance. I don't think Mo. She's trying to think maybe in the rounds, tires the 400 superstar thing Mo out a little bit, and she can upset her. But that's going to be the world's just. It's going to be. There's going to be such great races there. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm not really sure that's going to happen in the 800 though, with tiring out Mo in the rounds, because remember the final of last year's Olympic trials, she ran 156.0. At the Olympics, she runs 155. She did both of those in her third race of the championships. So Mo seems like she handles the rounds pretty well also.
That's a good point, Robert, about the rounds being different. But yeah, John, Mo's never showed to have a problem with the rounds. And I don't think, John, we need to do this transitive property that she lost by 0.8, blah, blah, blah. Laura Muir was gaining on her at the end of this race. Laura Muir has not looked that great this year. I would say the Laura Muir of a couple years ago looks better than this year. So just that eyeball test, even just Keely's reaction after the race, sort of, she just kind of gave a little smile, kind of like, wasn't the best. But big picture, what? She's now 20 years old? And her rival, they're both 20th best in the world. I mean, I guess the interesting question is, what's the closest she's ever been to Mo in a race? I think there's like at least a half a second gap between them. That's pretty significant. And the 800, the thing is, more so than the 15. I mean, if you lead, you got to break the wind. But I think if you're substantially better than someone and you can front run, you can beat people generally. Now, if there's wind or something else, that might change the situation a little bit. But it's closer to a time trial, right, than a 1500.
Yeah, well, Weldon, they've only raced twice in their careers. It was last year's Olympic final, which was Mo in 155.21, Hodgkinson 155.88. So I don't ever remember thinking in that race that Hodgkinson was going to beat her, but they did both run 155. And then they raced again at the pre-classic last year when Mo absolutely stomped her and won by 3 or 4 seconds. And other than that, the two had never raced each other.
South on YouTube wants to know if Mo and Hodgkinson will be in separate qualifying and semifinal heats at Worlds to preserve suspense for the final. They'll probably be in separate semis. I mean, they seed the heats based on your how fast you run, so they would probably be the top two in the world, I would think. So they definitely won't be in the same first round. And then if they keep winning their heats, but they don't. It's not like they make it up to try to keep people. It's all based on where you finish in your heat.
Wait, stuff like that. And while we're on it, Eugene's a 9-lane track. They need to change these rules, right? They just need to forget the time qualifiers. I mean, why do we care? For distance races, it should be all in place. Maybe don't, or maybe just the 800 is just so tough. But do 3 semifinals. There's usually 3 semifinal heats. Take the top 3 in each heat. Don't go off time. Time is so unfair. It's just in the 800, 1500. If you have how many people make a final in 15? 16 guys? No, 12 guys. If it's 12, do 10 auto qualifiers, 2 if you want to do time. Just I see the argument in the really long distances. Say a 5K, you don't want to go a 14:30 race and just have people kick. But I don't like the time qualifiers. And then the most brutal thing in qualifying in the World Championships, Olympics, is the 800 meters. Because it's not a time trial like the sprints, and you get in a bad heat, a tough heat, you finish third, you can be left at home. It's very tough. I guess maybe everybody should just go time trial it. Maybe that's the moral of the story.
Well, I don't know if you noticed this. Well, first of all, they only take 2 time qualifiers out of 12 in the 1500 final. It already works that way. But at NCAA's, they did have time qualifiers, but they took 9 to the final in the 800. They actually, normally it was always 8, and now they're taking 9. I think World Athletics, they probably need to make a whole new rule. But I thought it was interesting that in NCAA's, they're actually using all 9 lanes and taking an extra person to the final because they have that power ability now.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Phil, for that extra lane at the track. I mean,
I,
while watching this meet, I was wondering, should Phil have built the track in Portland? Maybe he could build an extra track in Portland. So we'll have one meet in Portland a year, one in Eugene.
well, I don't know if you can check your mic. There appears to be a slight echo when you talk loudly. But yeah, I noticed the thing about NCAA too, them, John, because I was writing the recap and I'm like, I looked at the third time qualifier. I'm like, no, they're out. Then I'm like, well, no, they're in. So I agree with Weldon. Again, World Athletics, if you need someone to give you the rules changes, I can be the head person there. I can hire Weldon as my assistant because this is common sense. And maybe you want to have a time qualifier for 5,000 just so people don't jog 60-minute pace. But for 800s and 1500s, no, let's just do it all in place. So that's the 800. The 5,000s were interesting. Coming into the 5,000s, one of the questions we were wondering is, are the Ethiopians going to show up? And the question, I mean, there was no top Kenyans in any of these events, the two 5,000s, women's 5,000, men's 5,000. And most of the top entrants were from Ethiopia. And then it comes out the day before the race or 2 days before, Ethiopia has announced their world championship teams. And I don't believe in announcing your world championship team early. You still have the worlds are over a month away. Why not wait until the last possible moment, figure out who's in shape? The only reason why you'd want to announce it early, by the way, is if you were going to ban them from racing in the future. So they announced the team yesterday or the day before, and they say, this is the team. By the way, if you race after today, you will be banned from Worlds. Well, guess what? All these women and men that were running today were already on the team. So I'm like, are they really going to ban them? I don't know. I haven't heard anything. John, have you seen anything on Twitter? They still showed up and they still raced. So it's absolutely insane that they would ban somebody for more than a month. I mean, all the Americans have to still go to USA's. The Brits still have to go to the British championships. Like most countries haven't had the national championships. It's not too early. This weekend is fine. We're still in more than a month out from Worlds. Like, let them run today or Paris. If you don't want them to go to Stockholm, which is at the end of the month, that's fine. But these Ethiopian rules are insane. So stupid.
Well, for the record, we actually are less than a month away from Worlds because Worlds begin on July 15th. So we're under a month to go. But I agree with you, Robert. Yeah, if you're going to keep them from running Stockholm on the 30th, that makes sense to me. But yeah, most countries haven't even had their national trials yet. So to name the team at this point is ridiculous. And then you say all of the Ethiopians in this meet were already on the team. That's not true because the winner of the women's 5,000, DeWitt Sayum, is not named in any distance. And yet she is the one who beat the world record holder Letesenbet Gide and the world indoor 1,500 champion Gudaf Sagai, who is named to the 5,000 team. Gide is named to the 10,000 team. Both of them were outkicked by a sensational 60 flat last lap by Dawit Sayum, who ran 14:25, number 3 time in the world this year. And unless Ethiopia, she's not even named as the alternate, which is totally baffling to me because the alternate at the moment is an athlete called, I just gotta pull up her name here. The alternate is an athlete called Sehe Gemachu. And Gemachu has not even run a 5,000 meter race this year. So somehow she's the alternate for this team. And the third person on the team is Fantu Worku, whose season's best is 14:47, which was faster than Sayum's season best until today. But Sayum also beat her head-to-head at Pre, and she ran 22 seconds faster than her today. And Sayum also won in Birmingham, or earlier this year. Sorry, she beat Worku head-to-head in Birmingham, not at Pre. But so she's got a head-to-head win and 2 Diamond League wins and 20 seconds faster this year, and yet she's not on the team and Fantu Worku is. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, John, you do understand they had announced the team before this woman ran a 22nd seasonal best.
I am aware of that, Robert, yes.
You seem to be obsessed with putting Sayum on the team. The person I'm obsessed with putting on the team is Lim Hailu. Lim Hailu won World Indoors. She's very young, like 20 or 21 years of age. She beat Fantu Worku at Pre head-to-head and has run faster than her. Normally they pick it on just pure descending order list. Whoever's run the fastest is on the team. For some reason, they skip over her and go to Worku. So maybe she's hurt. She hasn't raced recently. But when I watched this race, so, basically, if you didn't see it, or if you haven't seen the results, Dawit Sayum 14:25, Gudaf Sagai 14:26, Letesenbet Gide 14:26. The pace was hot because Caroline Grobdahl of Norway kept pushing it. mean, on the last lap, she may have had the lead or was battling for it. 14:31.07, just beating Alicia Monson, who runs 14:31.11 to move to number 4 all time in the U.S., right, John?
Number 3.
Number 3. Big PB. Her PB was 14:42 coming in. So she's now improved more than 1 minute in 3 years. She college PB was 15:31. Her pro PB is 14:31. Folks, Shelby Houlihan may be dirty, but those of you that say, "Oh, she improved too much," are you also saying that about Miss Monson, who's coached by a man who himself was injected with L-carnitine at a high level, and whose former pro coach was also banned from the sport? I don't think Ritzenheim is dirty. I think this group is clean as snow. I'm just questioning you on your logic, people. Questioning you on your logic there. But it was a fun race. Gravdal was amazing. She beating Christensen's Norwegian record, right, John? How long had that record stood for?
36 years.
So we should probably put that in the recap. I think we forgot to put that. But when I see this race, it was good to see Siam do well. Remember, this is the woman that was good as a junior, so good that Mary Kane and Alberto Salazar avoided the 1500 and went to the 3000 World Juniors because they're like, we can't touch her. And then she really hadn't done much as a pro. And then now she seems to be medal contender if she can get on the team. But if I'm Sagai and I see this result, the Ethiopia, God, I mean, we talk about incompetence, bureaucracies. They've got to be near the top. Like, Sagai needs to run the 1500 and the 5000, certainly the 1500 before she even dreams of touching the 5000. I just looked up the schedule. The 1500, 5000 double is imminently doable. The 1500 is completely done before the 5000 even starts. So why wouldn't she run the 1500? She's run 354 in the 1500. No one's going to touch her. She's going to get Faith Kipyegon's going to touch her. But it's just this insanity of they can't double. It's so stupid. It angers me.
Robert, I hate to ruin your party. Like, why are you guys ranting about the Ethiopian Federation? You have no pull with them. I was about to say there's no way they're going to hear us, but our podcast has been on Ethiopian radio before, so maybe there's hope roundabout ways, but they'd have to be a supporters club member. So maybe I shouldn't be so jaded. But look, they didn't allow doubles at the Olympics. Why are they all of a sudden going to change the rules a month out and allow doubles? Oh, and I hope my mic's working now, better people, but I have to go here in a second. If you're a supporters club member and you listen to this as a podcast, you'll be amazed at how much better the audio is. Join today, letsrun.com/subscribe. But John, guys, I got to jump off. I'll be running some of the graphics on the back end. Something came up. But the other thing I want you guys to talk about is that, I mean, the world record holder, Lieutenant Gide, John, this is your stat from the preview. She's the world record holder at 5K and 10K. She's now won one of her last 15 5,000 meters. I mean, it's just, I want to say she's not a 5,000 meter runner, but I mean, she's got the world record, but it just shows like how you can run really fast and not have a kick. And also this meet, I mean, it was pouring rain for this race at the start, and by the end of the meet, it was perfectly sunny. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the Gide thing, it's not really a shock to me. It's just the kind of runner she is. I mean, it's the same thing, Yomif Kajelcha. He's the world record holder in the indoor mile, 3:47.01. But if you put him in Diamond League 1500s, I don't think he's winning any of them. It's a different skill set, time trialing to your absolute max of your ability versus getting in races where there's strategy and where it comes down to closing speed and that sort of thing. So it is an interesting stat, Weldon, but it also doesn't shock me. It's also why I think that the 5,000 world record has some meat still on the bone there. But Rob, I wanted to push back on your point. You're saying Sagai needs to double in the 1500 or 5 or focus more on the 1500. I'd like to see her double, but I also think in the 1500, she's going to get beat by Faith Kipyegon. That's a given. Whereas in the 5,000, I know she just got beat today, but she got beat by someone who's not running Worlds. I think she can win the 5,000. I think her chances of gold are actually higher in the 5,000. The only person who I really see the big contender there, because we don't know what Safan Hassan's doing, but I'm kind of counting her out at this point since she still hasn't raced, is Francine Niyonsaba. And Niyonsaba she looked great in her last race at the Pre-Classic. She ran 8:59 to win the 2 mile there, almost broke the world record. I am just a little curious, though. We've had a number of Diamond League meets since then, and Nien Saba hasn't appeared in any of them. And she's a woman who loves to race in the Diamond League. She runs a lot of meets per year. I am a little curious if something could be up on her, or maybe I'm just freaking out because she hasn't raced in 3 weeks. But if she's absent, I think the 5,000 on the women's side is wide open.
Well, why not run both?
Well, because the Federation won't let you. And if she had to pick between only doing one, I can kind of get why she'd do the 5,000. Again, she was the bronze medalist last year at the Olympics. But
her medal odds are better in the 1,500. Gold medal odds are better in the 5,000.
yes.
I mean, maybe she doesn't like rain, but one thing about the world record holder Gaudet, I thought people on the message board were like, why'd she sit in the pack? I thought it was good to try to sit in the pack to see if she has any chance. She doesn't. And I just don't think she's in the same type of fitness as she was last year. So, it could be interesting. Other news here, Eilish McColgan was pushing the pace early. She ended up dropping out.
And Almaz Ayana was in this race. She was up front for a while. This was her first 5,000 since the 2017 World Championship final, and she ran 14:32. That's a nice little scalp for Alicia Monson to get there, beating a former world record holder and Olympic gold medalist in the 10,000 meters.
Yeah, Monson gets her, for McColgan, I have some thoughts on that. Honestly, I'm going to filter myself on that. I'm not going to say anything. If you don't say something positive about a woman's appearance, then don't say it, John. That's what I tried to teach you the other day.
Yeah, all you're going to do is tell everyone you're having some weird thought about Eilish McColgan's appearance that you're not going to say. To me, that's
I think
almost
people. I'll
bad.
hint at it. I think people want to be really thin to be a good distance runner, but I think you can be too thin. That's all I can say.
Oh my God.
They probably shouldn't have said that one, but that's my true thought there. I hope I'm wrong.
All right, should we go to the men's 5,000?
Sure. So recap what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, they said they were going to go for 13 flat. It wasn't quite as quick as I thought it was going to be, but, we had a bunch of guys kicking. Jack Rayner of Australia was leading this one with a lap or two to go. And basically, there was a big kick on the last lap between... Well, it wasn't a big kick. They didn't even close that fast. I think it was 56 for the winner, Telehun Bekele, but he was in there. Samuel Tefera, the World Indoor 1500 champ, was in there. Getnet Wale, the steeple fourth placer at the Olympics, was in there. And Joe Klecker, the American 10,000 champ, was in there. And Bekele ended up taking the win, 13:03, pretty convincingly in the end, actually. He did his nice little T gesture at the finish line, which is his trademark celebration. I enjoyed. I was a little surprised. I thought Samuel Tefera, when it's coming down to a kick, he'd be the guy to beat. But this was also only his second 5,000 ever, and he ran a personal best of 13:04. So maybe that pace was a little too hot for him to really, open it up. I thought good win for Bekele. I'm not going to overreact to this one because we didn't have Barahu Aragawi here. We didn't have Solomon Barega in here. We didn't have Jacob Kropp or Nicholas Kameli, the two Kenyans who ran really fast last week either. We didn't have Yomif Kajelcha. So there was definitely some talent missing here, but solid win for him. And I was impressed by Joe Klecker. I looked it up. This is the highest an American man has finished in a Diamond League 3,000 or 5,000. Since when do you think, Robert?
Since Ben True won one?
No, it hasn't been that long. It was since Paul Chelimo won in London in July 2018. And like I said, a few of the top guys were missing, but he was right with them. And, he was kicking with Wale, who's a 12:53 guy in the last lap. So I thought Joe Klecker, I know he was hoping for a personal best. He just missed it. He was hoping for sub 13. But to run 13:04 in a race where the winner ran 13:03 on a Diamond League circuit, his first international Diamond League, I'd say pretty solid day at the office for him.
I was excited on the final turn. I did briefly think, oh my God, what if Joe Klecker wins this race? He was fifth and then started moving up. But then at the end, he's 1.41 seconds off. It's okay. I would have liked to see him break, 13 minutes, but they went through halfway and over, 6:30. I think he was like 6:34. Then the pace lagged a little bit. So, I thought that it's fun to see him going over here. And I think, you don't want to bury the lead. John, you spoke to Dathan Ritzenheimer. You texted him. The big news is he told, or can we say it, John? Hopefully it wasn't off the record.
No, it's on the record. He said that he said that Joe Klecker and Alicia Monson might not run the 5,000 at USA's. He said it was sort of dependent on how this race went. I think Monson, for sure, after her big PR, is probably out. I think she's only, because he said they're only going to run one distance at the World Championships. Both of them are already on the 10,000 team. Maybe Klecker would come back and run the 5,000 at USA's, but if I had to guess right now, I'd say that neither of them are running the 5,000 next week in Eugene.
By the way, U.S.-based Luis Grijalva, 13-18 in this race. But Henrik Ingebrigtsen, 13:48. Philip dropped out. Apparently one of them said he's in really good shape and he just had an Achilles issue. But the other thing interesting about this was the top two Ethiopians, Telehun and Haile Bekele. Again, I'm critical of the Ethiopians for not letting people double. And I'm like, you should let the very best people double. Let Arigawi double. Well, if Arigawi doubles, guess who's not running Worlds? This guy, Mr. Bekele, who just won the World, the Diamond League 5,000. I still think that, winning a Diamond League 5,000, it's kind of a watered down Diamond League 5,000, to be honest. Samuel Tefera is best known for being a 1,500 meter world indoor champion. Getnet Wale is probably best known for being a steeplechaser. And then, so I feel like Aragawe won pre by like 15 seconds. Well, I guess he's already on the 5,000. But Samuel Tefera is the Olympic 10,000 meter champ. So, Ethiopia, I feel like they have so much talent. Sometimes they can get away with making mistakes. I mean, I guess putting this guy on here is not the worst mistake in the world. But, it's kind of interesting. I think this Mengesha guy, right, who was right behind Klecker, actually not right behind him. He's one spot behind him, but more than one second faster, slower. Isn't that the guy that's on their 10,000 meter team for them?
Yeah. He was the world junior champion at World Cross in 2019 as well. So
that's pretty good that Klecker's beating him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes you would have years where an American, like, how often would an American make the Ethiopian team in the 10,000 meters, right? I think you could say Rupp probably a few times, but other than him, pretty rare. And I'm not saying Klecker would have made that team, but if you're beating a guy,
he'd make their team. No, I don't think.
Well, he just beat a guy who made the team, so just pointing that out. Also, props to Jack Rayner, the Australian in 6th place, 13:06. Huge PB for him. Previous best was 13:34. Now, it's not a huge shock given he did run 27:15, the Australian record for 10,000 back in March. But, to get down to 13:06, that's pretty impressive running for him.
Super impressive. I mean, to see it, I don't care what he's capable of. He's a 13:30 guy, and he wasn't afraid to take the lead. There it is. The picture of Mr. We should have him on the podcast. I mean, it was amazing. Absolutely.
And one
amazing.
hell of a mustache, too.
Yeah, so, that was a good run there. But
third all-time among Australians, only Craig Mottram and Stuart McSwain have gone faster.
All right, let's talk about, that's all the distance races, correct?
That's right.
Let's talk about the other events. The meet starts off with Femke Bol and the 400 hurdles. She won that event by more than the distance runners were winning. Didn't she win by like 2+ seconds? It was absolutely ridiculous by how much she won by.
Yes, she did. 52.61 breaks the meet record that stood for 25 years, they said. And it's the third fastest time of her career. So the only time she ran faster was Tokyo Olympic final, 52.03, and 52.37 last year in Stockholm. So she's coming along right on time. I still don't see a scenario in which she's beating McLaughlin, but I could see her beating Dalilah Muhammad for the silver.
Well, I see a scenario.
What's the scenario? McLaughlin's hurt?
Correct. McLaughlin doesn't show up, and then
Yeah, I guess if you're reading into her, the whatever Bobby Kersey saw in New York during the warm-ups, if that's a big deal, then yes. But that's basically the only scenario I see it.
But the question I had, and I'm trying to pull up this picture for everybody who's watching this show live. She finishes the race, and then she has this expression. She puts her both hands up. I couldn't tell if she was upset, excited. I could not read her, John. Then I thought, to me, I thought she was a little bit miffed with this expression. And they said something about her butchering the last hurdle. I didn't really notice that, but you and Weldon seemed to think she was happy. Those of you listening on the YouTube comments, do you think that expression from Femke Bol is a happy expression? Or it's like, I kind of think it's like, what is that? Like, I think she thought, at first I thought she was happy, but then I think she thought, oh, I could have run more if I had not messed up the last hurdle, as they were saying on TV.
I don't know. She's broken 53 seconds. This is her 5th time doing it in her career. Her last 2 races, 53.49 in Hengelo and then 53.08 in Rome last week. To get under 53 and run 52.6, I thought she was pretty happy with it.
Well, perhaps.
All right, other sprint action. Other hurdle action. Devon Allen. I didn't come. Now there is some talk. I did mention in our preview. Look, if you run 12:84, your next race, you're going to be on world record alert. But it's the same thing we said. If it's possible for Devon Allen to run 12:84 on a perfect day, you're not going to get a perfect day very often. Like, by definition, that's an outlier performance, right? So in New York, he had good conditions. He had a friendly tailwind. He was primed and ready to go. He was fresh. This one, he's flying across the Atlantic. He's got a headwind of 1.2. It was not perfect conditions for him. He still won in 13:22, but he did not look nearly as strong as in New York. He hit a couple hurdles. I think it's a fine result. He got the win. He took care of business, but yeah, you need a special day to break a world record or even come close to it, and that's not what he had today.
But it's 0.38 of a second. I guess it was a big. How much of that is the headwind and the tailwind? Probably half of that, maybe. Negative 1.2. But it just, like, how did he run so much faster? I was excited. I was watching it. I was looking at the clock. I'm like, but if you look at the other people in the heat, second placer runs 13:30. His seasonal best was 13:32. So that is a seasonal best. There's 2 seasonal bests in this race. And the other people are only 0.1 off, 0.18 off, and 0.06 off. Whereas he's 0.38 off. Now, admittedly, he did have to take a plane across the country, across the world, and fly. So,
and his seasonal best is 12.84. Like, come on, Robert.
Yeah. Now, I thought the announcers, Steve Cram and Tim Cram's, or one of them was like, "Oh, I felt like he just didn't push at the end," and the other one was like, "No, did you watch the race? He butchered like the third to last hurdle, and then was just trying to make sure that he didn't hit the other ones. He was very slow. The difference between this race and the race in New York was, it would be similar. I would love to see their splits like at hurdle 6 versus the end. The last 3 hurdles in New York were absolutely amazing, and today they were quite slow. So that was that in that race. Looks like we've lost Jonathan Galt for a minute here. Others sprint action or whatever that we haven't gotten to of note was Karani James. It was kind of an interesting 400. He gets the win in 44.79, has the lead, sort of almost gets caught, and then puts on the turbo in the last 50 meters. Andre DeGrasse, I don't think anyone saw this race except for the people in the stadium because the feed went out. Gets a narrow win at 100. That guy is very good at coming through, John, when he needs to come through. 10:05, rounding into form as getting closer and closer to Worlds. A few weeks ago, you're like, how does this guy an Olympic champion? Now you're starting to see it. So that was interesting.
Yeah, Robert, this is the tailor-made for Andre DeGrasse. It's kind of cooler conditions. It's Oslo, 10:05 winning time. Like, if you told me that's what's going to happen in this race, I'd be like, oh, yes, this is Andre DeGrasse territory all day. He'll be ready at the World Championships. He always is. Can
Back
we
to
talk
the
about
hurdles.
the women's
We have a
200,
great-
Robert?
No, we need to talk about Devon Allen.
Uh,
C.S. Martin has some of the greatest comments every time we do a live show. Is Devon Allen more likely to score a touchdown for the Eagles this season or win gold at Worlds?
this isn't close. It's win goal at Worlds. Absolutely.
What?
We don't even know if he's going to be on the team for the Eagles, Robert.
Here's my question, John. I watch a lot of NFL, but I don't know the stats like this. If you make the team and you are a wide receiver, do you, by then definition, automatically score a touchdown? What percent of wide receivers score touchdowns?
No, like, first of all, they've got Jalen Hurts playing quarterback, not a great passer of the football, and he'd have to be one of the top. He'd have to be playing. He hasn't played football for 6 years, Robert, and he's got to stay healthy. I'm sorry, like he's got the fastest time in the world, one of the fastest times in history in the 110 hurdles. I feel pretty confident he has like at least a decent shot to win the gold medal. I'm not sure if I'd pick him over Holloway, but I'm pretty confident he's going to be in that final. I'm not confident at all he's even going to be on the Eagles roster this fall.
But we don't even know that he's in the World Championship team. He hasn't made the team yet. By the way, if there's any consultants out there, McKinsey and Company, Bain, I'm really good at these type of questions that you give interviews. If you want to hire me, I'll be happy to work for you for enough money. John, let's ask this question. This is how you're supposed to break these down. What % chance do you think that he makes the Eagle team?
I'd say like maybe like 8%.
8%?
He hasn't played football in 6 years, Robert.
Well, he's been signed. I was going to say at least 30%. And then what % if he's on the team does he score a touchdown?
If he's on the team, does he score a touchdown? I'd say that's probably about 30%.
So by you, that means you multiply the two, and he's got a 2.4% chance. I'm saying like 30 and 30, which would be, I think probably higher.
Robert, how many of these? What's the track record for track guys who say, "Oh, I'm going to go to the NFL," and then actually making the NFL?
What do you mean? I haven't seen any track guys that actually played college football and were pretty good at it. I don't want some British discus player who never played, college football trying to do it. So
I mean, Mucky's good. Look, Mucky's Goodwin did manage both, but I think when he went to the NFL, he was not as far removed from his college days at Texas. That's a long layoff to go from playing in college to then the highest level of the sport.
I'm jumping in here, guys. I'm on my phone, dressing a 2-year-old. I've been reading about the Eagles and stuff. Most people don't expect him to make the team. They think he'll be in the practice squad. This is why they have a practice squad. A guy who hasn't played football can be in the practice squad. I guess the Eagles really don't have a punt returner. So that's the question. Can he return punts? Probably more likely to make the team if he can return punts. Who knows? I mean, I guess he could pick up football really easily. If you're a receiver on the team, John, most likely you score a touchdown, I feel like, right? Like even the 4th and 5th receiver usually score one touchdown a year.
Again, not with Jalen Hurts throwing them the football.
Well,
and there we folks, those of you watching live, Let's Run has done it again. The sexism of the show has reached a new low for the first time ever. We've had a topless woman live on the YouTube show. I'm surprised YouTube hasn't shut us down. In case you're watching live, that's Weldon's daughter. She's only 2.
Oh, wait. Robert, I wanted to go back. So, All in the Game here has a question. The worst Diamond League 200 ever. Only one woman went sub 23. That's exactly why I wanted to talk about the women's 200. Because I saw this race, and I saw the winner, and I was like, well, I've never heard of that person in my life. It was a Danish record, Ida Karstoft. So, good race for her. But I was looking at this field, I'm like, how is this a Diamond League event? I know that, all right, it wasn't the best possible conditions for sprinting, but one person in the entire race broke 23 seconds.
I didn't see this race. I guess I paused my TV, must have been typing on the recap or getting ready for the show, and then I saw the result. It's like, what? So what struck me was, so she wins in a national record. Congratulations to Miss Ida Karstoff, 20:73. But the fastest seasonal time coming into this meet was 22:76. So Abby Steiner just ran 21.80 at NCAAs. And I was like, was 22.76 even a good college women's time? So I looked it up. Where do you think 22.76? That wasn't even the winning time. 22.73 was the winning time. But where do you think the best seasonal best would place you on the NCAA regular season list?
I'll say like 80th.
No, it's better than I thought. It's 15th.
Oh, all right.
You know, maybe this woman makes. I guess she's got an outside shot to make.
She could make it to NCAAs.
I was thinking this. I'm like, couldn't they get a college sprinter that would just want to fly over there for $10,000? But I guess you got to get them over there. It's kind of expensive to get to Europe, and if you don't win, then the prize money drops, so you probably lose money. But yeah, it was. I noticed the exact same thing as you, John.
Yeah, $10,000 for running 22.73. That's not bad work if you can get it. All right, I think that's pretty much going to wrap Oslo, right? Unless we want to talk about Olympic champion Valerie Ullman getting upset by Sandra Perkovic in the discus. But
wait, there's another race that apparently I didn't watch. Didn't even see it. And it's my favorite run. I was wondering why people were talking about this person on the message board. I must have paused the race. I'm always trying to take screenshots for the show, people. You guys don't realize what goes on. I can't even enjoy these meets. Oh, my God. My favorite interview from Eugene raced this meet. He almost ran a world leader.
Alison Dos Santos.
47.26 was sensational yet again, huh? Now, he says that he needs to run 45 to win Worlds if Warholm's there. I guess these conditions weren't great, right? A little bit cool. Looks like he's way off his 45, but he's got to be the favorite for Worlds.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends. What percentage of Warholm are we getting? What percentage of Benjamin are we getting? You could argue he beat Benjamin earlier this year, so maybe he's already ahead of Benjamin, but he's the guy who's running the best at the moment. That's without doubt.
Okay, but one last thing. I didn't get out on the Allen thing. What do you think the odds that Allen makes the U.S. team?
Devon Allen making the U.S. team. Well, he doesn't have to worry about Holloway because Holloway's already got the bye. Cunningham is really the other star. I'd say the odds of Devon Allen making the U.S. team are probably about 80%.
Well, I was going to say even higher, 95.
They might, yeah. I mean,
as long as he doesn't fall.
Yeah, like they're pretty high.
What is that race today? Does he make it? Without Holloway, it's a big advantage. I'm looking up the U.S. list right now for 110 hurdles. All right, so let's just say it's 90%. And then the odds of him meddling once on the team.
Well, of him winning gold,
winning,
this was the question. Winning gold once he's on the team, I'd put them around 20 to 30%.
Oh, I'd put it a lot less than that. What's his head-to-head record against Trey Cunningham?
Well,
Grant Holloway.
I mean, I don't think he's really raced Trey Cunningham much. He beat Grant Holloway in New York, and Holloway had won their previous 7 matchups, but then before that, Allen had won in 2017 and 18 when Holloway was still, pretty young. But Holloway, I mean, he hasn't really raced a ton this year. So he that was his first race in New York. It was his first race for like a month and a half. So I trust Grant Holloway. If he gets to the World Championship final, I'm probably going to pick him just because he usually is quite clutch. But yeah, I take Devon Allen. I mean, I don't know. The two guys that would really worry me are Grant Holloway and Parchment. I guess Cunningham's in good shape too. Yeah, it's going to be hard. Like, I'm not saying like he's a favorite to win Worlds, but he's run 12.84. I think he has a pretty good shot.
He's run it once. Yeah, it's interesting.
You guys are going to do a full Rome preview now, right?
Paris preview.
Paris, excuse me.
I was looking at the entries. I mean, the meet is on Saturday. I'm finding it hard to get particularly excited about it. The fields, there is Borrega. There's another 5,000, which I just don't understand at all why you'd run 2 men's Diamond League 5,000s in a 3-day span. Selman Barrega's in there, George Beamish, Mukhtar Edris. But some of these other
That's a
fields,
great field. That's better than this field, John. That's way better than this field. Barrega, Edris.
I wouldn't say it's way better than this field. I think
Sign me
Barrega's
up for
better
that
than
one.
any.
Okay, I'm into that.
But, all right, then men's 800. Roberts Boy Dobek is in there. Peter Boll, Nigel Amos, Elliot Giles, Amel Tuca. I mean, yeah, it's decent field. Women's steeplechase. I'm not excited about this at all. The top Kenyans are not in there. Nora Gerudo's not in there. None of the Americans are in there. Makide Zabebe of Ethiopia, 9:02. She's the only woman who's run faster. Her and Rosafline Chepengedic, they're the only women in the field who've run faster than 9:13 in their careers. So that's kind of a stinker. And those are the only distance races. So I'm like the final event of the meet. They have Shelley and Fraser Price in the 100. But to me, this is not like a top quality Diamond League meet.
Usain Bolt usually runs Paris, John, so he's probably in there. Are you proud? Are you happy? I said his name right.
I wasn't sure if you were going to comment on that or not, Weldon, but I am proud of you that you pronounced his name correctly.
First time ever. For 10 years, I've been pronouncing his name wrong. I went to McDonald's with a guy in Boston once, probably calling him Usain the whole time. I apologize, Usain. We need you.
Devon Allen's in the 110 hurdles, so I guess I'm kind of interested by that.
Think how much attention, if he just said, I'm going to run Paris, and they're like the betting books would put odds and what times he'd run, people would watch. I mean, even if he's going to run like 10.5 or something, that would be great. And somebody else in the comment was asking if we also have 2 high school national championships this weekend, or one's a national championship. Cade Flatt, podcast guest, is going for the national record tomorrow night. But it turns out, even if he breaks the record, Robert has now pointed out there's also a Nike Nationals, but they have Will Sumner racing Cole Hawker and Cooper Tier in an 800, but no Cade Flatt. So Cade could break the record, and the record could last 2 hours, the record that has lasted 26 years. This is crazy. But I don't know. It's pretty interesting. 2 things out for people to watch this weekend if you're based in the U.S., because it's kind of cool that this record's been there for 26 years, and I guess it could go down twice in the same week. And I personally find Cade Flatt, he's 19, as John wants to point out, very entertaining, very cocky, very confident. I think we need more people in the sport like him. He runs 5 miles a week, allegedly.
Yeah, I want to see those training logs. It's kind of weird. He said he thought he ran 15, and then somehow he ran 3. Like, if I only ran 3 miles a week, I feel like I'd know the difference between that and 15. But it was a great interview. I really enjoyed listening to Cade and his whole attitude to the sport. I thought it was pretty awesome. So definitely going to be excited watching that. And also, Weldon, we had another high school sub-4, another junior, break 4 minutes in the mile at the Brooks PR Invitational. Simeon Birnbaum of South Dakota. So that's 5 in one season. It's pretty crazy. From the beginning of time until 2015, there were only 5 high schoolers who ever did it, and now we've had 5 in the span of a month and a half. I'm starting to think your crazy prediction of 10 high school boys breaking 4 in the 2030 season might not be so crazy. I still don't think it's going to happen, but we've got 5 in 1 year. Could it be 10 8 years from now?
John, who knows? I mean, we got 2 more national meets this weekend. We might have a couple more. Gary Martin's running the mile, right? You're having a story on Gary Martin's coach. Is that coming out?
Yeah, I'm working on that. And Gary Martin, he's essentially the secret sauce. He rabbited Simeon Birnbaum. He was also pushing the pace for Connor Burns when he broke 4 at the Hoka Festival Miles. And then Gary did it by himself at his conference meet. So if Gary Martin's in the race, you kind of seem to be guaranteed a sub-4 now. And he is running the mile at New Balance Nationals Outdoor. So yeah, there's probably some random high schooler I haven't heard of who's going to break 4 in that race as well, just because Gary Martin's going to be pushing the pace.
And I don't want to ruin John's story. Everybody should read it. But until Gary Martin's coach had never coached a guy who'd broken 5 minutes in the mile. Now he's got a guy who's run 3:57. So that's pretty cool as well.
Which proves my point. You get the talent, most coaches can coach it. Well, the more I look at this Paris meet, the more I'm not excited about it, which is good because I got to go to a wedding this weekend, so I will not be covering it for you guys. Might be nice. I'll be out on the West Coast. I can just wake up and watch it early in the morning. I'll see you guys next week.
Is he just leaving? Are we done, John?
I guess he's leaving us to close this thing out. Well, then,
wow.
Yeah,
The other thing also, I mean, I think this kid, who would have thought, like a junior in high school, had never gone sub-4 since the first ever sub-4 in America, Jim Ryan, back in the 60s. Then we had Connor Burns. Then we had this kid last night. I don't know his name, John. What's his name?
Simeon Birnbaum.
From South Dakota or North Dakota?
South Dakota.
I mean, this is crazy. I mean, we've got to do a story in this guy. South Dakota has a sub-4 minute miler as a junior in high school. He went from 4:07 to sub-4. I mean, if that's what's going to happen, just as crazy. But also, like, I'm sure there aren't that many big towns in South Dakota, John. I mean, it's crazy. I've been to the capital. It's like the Dakotas are just tiny.
Do you remember the capital of South Dakota, Weldon?
Is that the one with the St. Pierre?
No, it's Pierre. It's spelled Pierre, but it's pronounced Pierre.
Okay. But if they can do it, and then like Cade Flats from this little town in Kentucky, 4,000 people, you know, I think he had a line. It's like, what's your coach's credentials? And he's like, he's the English teacher. I'm on the English teacher credentials. I mean, so I think it goes back to all what Danny Mackey said. Does the coach make the athlete or the athlete the coach? And Danny's like, 100% the athlete makes the coach.
No, he said 98%.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with him 100%. Yeah, he said the athlete is about 98% of the equation.
Wait, Weldon, we got a comment here from Sakaya about, Jonathan, your thoughts on Basuma leaving Brighton. Oh, I've been waiting to share my opinion on this. Yves Basuma, a terrific central midfielder, is going to be sold to Tottenham Hotspur. You know what? I'm okay with it because he was a great player for us the last couple of years. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, so if he left in the summer of 2023, we'd be getting nothing for him. And we have some nice replacements coming through the ranks. Moises Caicedo, very impressive for Brighton down the stretch last year. You know, we had our best season ever in the Premier League, 9th place, something Crystal Palace can only dream of. So I wish Basuma the rest. I kind of wish he was going to a different league so he wouldn't be playing against us, but I think Brighton will be fine without him. We have him. We have Enoch Mwepu coming up. We'll be okay.
I mean, I'm sure he didn't want to be stuck on a championship club in 2 years, so that's probably why he's leaving, John, once his contract's up. So.
Well, there were teams like, I think Aston Villa might have been interested, so yeah, he could have maybe ended up in the championship if we sold him to them, but Brighton's here in the long haul. So.
I mean, get relegated, you know. While we're on soccer, did you see, John, that Apple TV did the MLS deal for it's $2.5 billion over 10 years, I think, $250 million a year.
Yeah, did that many people really watch the MLS? I'm like, is the MLS really that much more popular than track and field?
Well, the ratings are actually pretty bad for MLS on ESPN. Maybe we should do an article on that. I think an MLS game gets about 300,000. Track, I know, in like network TV gets over 1 million, so that's pretty poor. But I'm like, 2.5 billion seems like a lot. 250 million a year, and they're like, look, there's over 30 teams. It's only about $7 million per team per year, 7.5 million. It's tiny. And they said that championship teams get more than that. So a little perspective. But yeah, track, can we do better?
I'm not sure if we can. I just don't think there's a huge appetite out there for track. Like, I don't know. I don't want to go on a huge tangent, but Dwight Phillips was the former long jump world champion, was on Twitter this week saying, you know, track and field will never be a legitimate professional sport until athletes are getting a cut of, you know, the ticket sales and TV rights. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, in an ideal world, yes, they would. But organizers need to, like, I think he's way overestimating the amount of money that exists there. Organizers have to cover their own expenses before they start paying out the athletes. Otherwise, you're not going to have a track meet at all. So has he seen how many people have been showing up to track meets? Like, there's not a lot of money coming in from the ticket revenue that isn't already being used to actually stage the meet itself.
Oh, yeah. He thinks track athletes aren't being paid their share? No, track isn't generating enough revenue. Divvying it up, you can divvy up the revenue once we get it. I don't think the athletes are getting screwed over. I think we're just not bringing in enough money. That's the big issue with track. And this MLS thing was interesting because it went into it. There's a ton of costs, like production costs, putting stuff on TV. They're like, we're going to have to spend about $75 million to put the stuff on TV. So, like, you're a low-rent league. To put the stuff on TV, there's a lot of costs. So, like, yeah, NBC might put something on and like, yeah, okay, we're not going to pay a lot of money. Be glad it's on TV. Be glad you're getting exposure. And then, we have probably like 3,000 people at a New York City World Athletics meet with the best stars in America. There's just not a lot of money. Think how many athletes are at a meet. There's just not a lot of money. These things they're not turning a profit outside of, like, I don't even know who was to sponsor that. USATF, Adidas used to sponsor it. Like, without the sponsors putting up a lot of money, I think there's sort of more break-even propositions.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It kind of gets us back to what we were talking about earlier with Turku. Now, I know there's more than one track and field meet in America, but that New York City meet, that is, I guess Milrose is indoors, so maybe not. But, like, that is by far the best track and field meet you're going to get in the New York City, in the tri-state area, that New York City Grand Prix of the entire year. It's not like this, we had these trials of miles events, which were decent, but, like, that New York City Grand Prix, that's basically the big track meet in the most populous area of the country. And it's drawing like a fraction of what some random town in Finland can get for a meet with not nearly as good fields. I mean, that, if you're looking for a reason to be depressed about the state of track and field in America, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, they need to hire someone to promote it locally. I mean, it's sort of crazy that we can't do better, but all the big PR communications people, they work in finance, thank God, like my wife. Pays a little better.
Yeah, even if the
finance industry, switch over to track and field.
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you, as always, to anyone watching live or to anyone who's listening to this as a podcast, as a member of the Let'sRun.com Supporters Club. Thank you. If you're watching live and you haven't joined the Supporters Club and you want discounts on shoes, you want a nice, cool Let's Run t-shirt, the best, softest t-shirt in the game, you want access to these podcasts on demand, you want all of our articles, Friday 15. It all comes with the Let'sRun.com Supporters Club membership. You can do that at Let'sRun.com/subscribe. But yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll have a USA Outdoor Championships preview. Big week in track and field next week. Well, then the U.S. track world will descend upon Eugene once again for one of the best meets of the year. Can't wait.
I know. I need to get a ticket, I think. Fly out there. But it's one of the best weekends of the year for American fans.
Absolutely. All right. Until then, signing off.